Hello and welcome to the first episode of Racing TV's new digital show, Flat Out, brought to you by three people, one of which you've probably heard of, two of which you probably haven't, but all of us brought together by one thing, and that is the shared passion for flat racing. I'm Joey Laver, I'm an assistant producer at Racing TV. We've got Jack Nichol, who works on the digital team at Racing TV, and Tom Ball, who you've probably heard of, who is a junior presenter with Racing TV. So let's start off by just introducing ourselves a little bit more, and we'll chuck over to Jack. And where else could we start really with Jack this week, having a particularly poignant family success with Wise Eagle finishing second in the Cigaro Stakes. I mean, that must have been a hell of a day.
Yeah, unbelievable, and going there to Ascot, it was a bit of a swing, but after Musgrove, we thought he'd probably earned a shot at it, and you turn up and you think, oh, True Shine and Coltrane, got no chance, but he's went and run above himself again, and turning in, you thought he might even have a chance of winning, but oh, look, we were delighted to finish second, and I think after that, we're going to have a go at the Ascot Gold Cup now, and could only dream of going to a race like that when you bought him for 7,000, and it's just a fairy tale, really. So obviously that's on my brother's side. I worked for William Haggis as well. Worked for 3 years at Somerville Lodge, and I came from university thinking I knew everything about racing, and going there at Somerville Lodge working for William and Maureen. I mean, that's when you really start your education, and it was 3 brilliant years in Newmarket and learning from the very best. And you there, Tom, you looking very smart. You've just come from Chelmsford.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, the Chelmsford coalface, as we like to call it. It's been a busy old day. So, yeah, apologies for looking a little bit too smart, maybe. Yeah, a little bit about me. I've been a presenter at Racing TV about a year and a half now. I would say it's probably 2 years since I joined originally. And before that, I was at both the Sun for a couple of years, and then the Racing Post for 3.5 years. So always had a love for racing. And always loved both codes, actually. I know it's quite rare to have equal love for jumps and flat racing, but I do really. And whenever the jump season comes to a close, can't wait for the flat to start and vice versa. So very excited
That's
about
blasphemy on this. That's blasphemy. That's not the message we want to be sending out.
Well, what I would say is that flat racing for me has always been my first love. It's really what got me into racing originally. The days of rewilding and So You Think and that kind of thing. Those are the horses that got me into the game. Jumps then followed, but it's always been about flat originally. And I've always loved those big field handicaps, the Victoria Cup and the International, all that kind of stuff. I think they're brilliant. So for me, the flat has got a special place in my heart. And yeah, loving life as a Racing TV presenter now. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, Chelmsford tonight was really warm too, so that was a bonus as well. Joey, I know you've got.
That is a rare event. That is a rare event, isn't it?
Do you know, I honestly don't think I've ever been there when it's warm before. So I really am. I'm still basking in the sunshine glow. Yeah,
clearly.
Yeah, hopefully I've got a tan as well. Yeah, Joey, I know that you've had a lot of experience kind of working in flat studs and yards over the years.
Yes, Tom. Yeah, so that was my background before Racing TV. I did the National Stud course years ago, and then I went on to work at Newstalls Park after that, and then on to Watership Down as well for a little spell. So, yeah, that is my background from there. So on the pedigree side of things, the stud side of things. Before that, actually, I came to racing quite late, So it shows that really there is an audience out there you can speak to. I mean, it was only in my early 20s, I think I really started getting massively interested in racing. Before I was working in advertising and hair care, like literally selling advertising for shampoo companies. I mean, I was just completely desolate. And that's really the sort of time where I got into racing. So,
well, you have got lovely hair, to be fair.
Oh, it's very nice of you to say that. I'm such a flatterer, that. Such a flatterer. But you can't hide the profits of selling advertising for years. You can't hide those profits. They shine through. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about our backgrounds. So we should probably start talking about some racing, lads. And what a perfect week to launch this podcast. I mean, I think in general, the Guineas week is probably one of my favourite weeks of the year. So I think it's a year for the purists, isn't it? I mean, I know I joked at you, Tom, there, but I mean, I do like my jumps racing. I think Jack likes it, slightly lesser extent, but it's always it kind of creeps up on you, the Guineas, doesn't it? I mean, it's at that early stage of horses' careers, and you don't know too much about them. So unless you really, really are an enthusiast, I think it's hard to get excited. So, I quite like that. You know, you go to the Guineas Festival, and it's not overpacked. It's actually just full of people that are there because they really love flat racing. So I'm really excited for the weekend. So let's start talking through. Who wants to go first with one of their fancies? I guess I'll throw it to you, Jack, to start us off with our first pick.
Yeah, we'll start in the 2:15 on Saturday. The Kilvington Stakes. It's actually been won. 6 of the last 9 winners have been won by a 3-year-old. So there's only 2 in there this year, both trained by George Bowie. I want to start with Perdika as my tip for this. My angle here is that she's going to be absolutely hard fit. She's been on the go all winter. She's run 4 times in Meydan. She's been to France. She must just be of sound mind. And a bit like Osceola last year for Bowie. When he gets a filly or a mare in this type of form, he's not afraid to run them. She ran at Bath there again the other day, and she ran an absolute stormer in second. And I just think she might catch a few of these cold. Michael Dodds, his spring's not in great form. They're a bit hit and miss. I think up until recently he was north from 90 odds. So they've been a little bit slow at the blocks, and I think Perdika might just have the fitness edge on some of these. And I think she's the one to be on here.
No, yeah, I can see that. She finished 4th behind Dream of Love and Moors, didn't she, out in Dubai this winter? Definitely.
She does, yeah. So she's got a bit of back form there. And she went to France there, as I mentioned. She's won a listed race, and with that weight for age and on her rating, I think she could just be the one to be on.
She could be, and that is in the 2:15 Newmarket this Saturday afternoon. Tom, would you like to go next? Would you like to say what you fancy? What's your first pick for us on this Flat Out podcast on our debut?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting my boxing gloves on because I'm taking Jack on in that race at Newmarket. And hopefully Jack's stat about 3-year-olds won't come to fruition, because I'm tipping up a horse who's 7. And it's been quite a long time since a horse that old has won this race. But hopefully Gale Force Meyer can do it. She's actually one of my favourite horses in training, I have to say. She had 11 starts last year. She won 5 of them, and she was just going from strength to strength. And in the end, she ended her season off a mark of 107, and she started off 98. And she, I mean, not a huge rate of progress in terms of ratings, but because you're at that high level already, she was getting better, and she was very consistent at that high level as well. And what I like most about her is that she's got a very good record fresh, and she won a handicap on the 12th of April last year, her first time of the season, at the start of the season, after a 185-day break. And this time she's had a slightly longer break, 210 days, but not by a huge amount, really. And that fresh angle I do quite like. Previously, the season before that, she finished a good 4th at Redcar, when she wasn't quite as polished a performer as she is now. That was off a 175-day break. And then the year before that, off an 83-day break, she finished 2nd at Thirsk. So she knows exactly what she's doing when she's running fresh. And hopefully she's going to be tuned and ready to go for this. I get what Jack just said about Michael Dodds' form. It hasn't been fantastic, but there have been signs recently that he might be starting to come to the boil. So for me, I think Gale Force Meyer, at her beloved Newmarket, she's got such a good record at this track. I think she can be very hard to beat in that 2:15. Yeah, it's a really competitive race, but I'd be keen on her.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been in the best of form, but he did have the horse that won the Stewards Cup last year. I think Jack will remember this horse. Yeah. He went really close to winning, didn't he, the other day? Comanche Falls, yeah. Beat Jack's beloved Tab.
He's had a couple of winners this week as well. One at Redcar, I think, today as well. So there are shoots of promise in the yard. So that's promising for Tom's sake, anyway.
There are those green shoots of revival for the Dodds. For myself, going off to the 2:50 at Newmarket, I was looking through this race, and I was trying to find the winner. And I was looking back on Blackrod's win last year in this exact race, and you can't help but have your eye caught by Above, who last year, running off a mark, I think about £6. Is it £6, £7 higher now? really eye-catching. And the other day, just same course and distance, he broke slowly from the stalls and really rattled home seriously quickly, to finish still miles behind essentially. But it was such a promising run with how slowly he broke. So he'd be one I'd give. He's one of those horses that this year, off the mark, that's slowly falling. You're going to see him go in one day at a big price, and I'm just going to basically keep backing him throughout the start of the season until he wins, because I'm pretty sure he will. Jack, back round to you.
Yeah, just staying on that race. I did look at that today, and I do quite like Rottier. He was unlucky on the Rolly Mile in his 2 races last year. I'm not sure if I'd go with him again first time up. I actually thought in that race, the one I probably would still be with is Probe. I know that you quite like him there, Tom. Just from that race, he's the one I'd probably be with here, but stall 22, it was enough to put me off as well. And I'm probably happy just to sit this one out. I don't know what you think, Tom.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting curiosity of the race, isn't it? Because Probe's drawn 22, Admiral D, who's currently second favourite at the time of recording, is in 23, and Blackrod, who's 4th favourite at the time of recording, is 21. So plenty of the fancy runners are towards the higher draws. And I do like Probe, I have to say. I think the best horse finished second in his race last time, and that was him, behind Orazio. I thought Orazio was delivered to perfection that day by William Buick. And Probe, we're still learning a little bit about him as a racehorse. And he's the type, I think, that really needs to be delivered absolutely as late as possible, because he doesn't like being in front that much. And we saw at Newmarket on the 19th of April, a couple of weeks ago, that he was delivered a little bit too early, hit the front too soon, having raced a touch out of Lewis Edmonds' hands, and therefore was swamped late on by Orazio. I do think, though, off the same mark, with Kieran O'Neill on board, if Kieran can deliver this horse absolutely as late as possible, I think he can pounce towards the denouement of the race and pick them all up, because I think he's a sprinter going places. And so far this season, he's really impressed me. He's not had long with Jenny Candlish. She's done an absolutely fantastic job with him. And I can see him running a big race in that 250. It's a really competitive contest. It always is. But hopefully he can run a big race. And yeah, Joey, I'm a big fan of his.
Well, you made a great case. You made a very good case. Hard to disagree there. Jack, I think you've got a fancy in the 325.
I do, yeah. This would probably be my best bet for the whole weekend. It's a really strong each way chance. I would say that much, because is there 17 runners. I mean, look, it's dual identity anyway. He won his race in the Cambridge at the back end there last season. He was about 4 or 5 lengths clear of Protagonist. I think there was only 5 over on that side. Obviously, the Haggis runner, he's went out to Australia, won a Group 3. I think he's rated 99. All that absolutely destroyed him that day. And he had his race won, and, you know, the 2 on the near side have just gone past him. He did run again since. He was 3rd of 6 behind Turntable, who reopposes, but that was his 9th start of the season. It was good to soft ground. I can completely forgive him that. Funnily enough, before the Cambridge, he probably should have won at Sandown. He was given far too much to do by Andrea Tseni. And before that, he was gambled on, and he won like a proper horse. Under Jim Crowley, who's actually back on him here. He's been on him for all 3 of his career wins. William Knight's been a little quiet so far. He hasn't had many runners, but there has been a few placed efforts this month. So that's, again, like Michael Dodds, there's signs of positivity in the yard coming to form. And I just think this horse, he loves the track, and you've got to take on chance that he'll be ready first time up, but I don't see why not. And I think he's got a very, very good chance.
No, that makes perfect sense. And that goes on, that we can just go on steadily from there to the 4 o'clock, Jack. And I think we both share a fancy in this, don't we?
Yeah, so I mean, my confidence wouldn't be quite the same as Dual Identity, but I really do like Twilight Calls. He was 5th in this last year. He was drawn probably on the wrong side. He's got a better draw this time. And to be fair, I think if there's a Group 1 horse in here, it's just him. You know, he finished 2nd in the King's Stand when we last seen him. Obviously, no match for the Aussie Speedball, but I think he is the class act in this field. 9 of the last 13 winners of this race have went on to win a Group 1 later in the season. And as I say, I think he is the most likely Group 1 horse in this field. He goes well fresh, so I wouldn't have too many worries first time up as well. He's actually 16 to 1 for the King's Stand. And I think this division is probably up for grabs this season. And as we've seen, he acts at Ascot as well. I'd be half tempted to have a go at him at 16 to 1 before this race. I'm a little undecided as yet, but I think in this race at the moment, 3 to 1 is a great bet. I'm not sure if you agree, Joy, or if you're a bit stronger than I am.
I'm a bit stronger, yeah. I mean, I said he won on his last 2 seasonal reappearances. I think he oozes class, this horse. Oozes class. He clearly likes the track. He was clearly drawn in the wrong part of the track last year. It all happened on the other side. And I thought he ran a really, really, really decent race in this last year. I think he's got a lot of class. I just don't think it's quite dropped. He hasn't had the ride that I think he wants to really be ridden a little bit more prominently. As you say, with a horse like Nature Strip, he's never going to be that level. He's going to be a decent Group 1 horse, and I think one day one will drop in his lap. And as you say, it may well be at Royal Ascot this year. I hope so, because I backed him for it as well. I really like him. He's a really strong traveller. But as I said, if you're looking at the way to ride him, the way Adam Kirby rode him at Haydock last year is the way that I would say I wouldn't like him ridden. I think you need to be a bit more aggressive than that. And I want to have him see him ridden nice and prominent. And then he can kind of travel into the race and can kick away with a furlong to go. He's not one of those horses I want to wait till late with. So yeah, no, I really do fancy him. I think looking through the rest of the race, it's hard to find too many in there that, as you say, have as much kind of ability as this horse. So yeah, I think 3 to 1's a great price for a horse that's going to be pretty ready to go first time out. So yeah, and then we move on to the 2,000 guineas. Who wants to go? Mr. Bull, I think you've had a long-term fancy for this, and then suddenly price-wise comes along, ruins all the fun, doesn't he? And then all the juice goes, and then we wait too long to get this podcast out, essentially, didn't we? But there you go. Take us away, Royal Scotsman.
Yeah, big fan of this horse. Been a big fan for a long time, and I think a mile is going to be absolutely his bread and butter. We saw him in the Dewhurst last season, finishing a fantastic second behind Chaldine, and he was staying on towards the line all the time. Suggested to me that the Guineas has got to be next stop. Indeed, it is. And he's a horse I've always held in very high regard. He was a very good sprinter in his own right last year, but he's not just a one-trick pony. He really isn't. After winning that Richmond Stakes, he went to York, and he scoped badly after the race at York, finishing 8 lengths behind Noble Star. So I think you can probably overlook that to an extent. And then he went to the Dewhurst following that run and ran an absolute blinder, as I said, finishing second, beating Nostrum in behind fairly comprehensively. And I think Chaldine, the argument that I know that people make about Chaldine, including Mr. Jack Nicol, is that Frankie put the race to bed between the 2 and the 1, and then Chaldine was just kind of holding on, and he'd already done the winning by that point. But with another furlong under his belt, I can absolutely see Royal Scotsman turning that form around. And I'm very excited to see him over a mile this year in general. I'm hoping that he can produce a really big run, and he's kept to those mile races like St James's Palace and then those later down the line as well, because he's a horse I absolutely love, and it'd be great for Paul and Oliver Cole to get that big winner in the Guineas. Just wanted to say, in general, I think the race this year is absolutely fascinating. I can't recall a contest in which I'm so enamored with, in terms of 2,000 guineas, that is, because there are so many interesting question marks about so many of these runners over the trip. Little Big Bear being one, Sakir, who, I watched that Mill Reef again, and he just absolutely bolted in. If he's as good over a mile, and he's the one to beat in my view, but that is the big question mark. He's got so much to beat. And of course, Noble Star, another one. So yeah, huge amount of question marks. But Joey, I've got to say, I can't wait for the race, and hopefully Royal Scotsman can run a big one. He'll need to, because it is a really hot contest.
Yeah, I think we'll learn. Everyone will learn as we go on through these podcasts about how certain people who will appear on this podcast look at racing. And Mr. Nicol is not going to be that keen on a Paul and Oliver Cole horse in the Guineas, is he? So That's just the way it is. But if you do look at Royal Scotsman, he's by Glen Eagles. He's out of a pivotal mare. It's a similar sort of cross to horses like Magical, who stayed very, very well. You would say there's a fair bit of pace. There's a few sprinters on the dam side of his pedigree, and Glen Eagles tend to go a bit quicker than the rest of the Galileos out there. So no, I'd be extremely positive about him staying a mile. I don't think that would be a problem at all. Just from the way he's shaped in that race. And Dewhurst was all hinting towards that he has the stamina to see out a mile on the Rolly Mile. So I'd be fairly positive on him. Jack, I mean, you like the same race, you like the same form line. How do you like this year's renewal of the 2000 Guineas?
Well, firstly, I would absolutely echo what Tom says. It's an absolutely fascinating renewal. There's question marks about all the main contenders. But yeah, the Dewhurst, the three horses in that, obviously Nostrum as well. I would actually rank them at the time: Nostrum, Chaldean, and Royal Scotsman. I just can't have Royal Scotsman. I'd be so disappointed if he went to one of the Guineas. I really would. He's just not good enough. I'll be honest. After he won a good one, they were talking about this horse is all speed, and it seems after he got beat at York, whether there was an excuse or not, they kind of think, oh well, we'll try and we'll go up another furlong. And fair enough, he's running an absolute blinder. But as Tom kind of alluded to, my argument was that Frankie kind of was always had him at bay. I think Nostrum probably had been a bit too quick on his last run, so there was an excuse there. But for me, I'd be a little disappointed if Royal Scotsman was good enough when you've got the likes of Auguste Rodin, Little Big Bear, and the trio of sprinters going up to a mile, obviously Noble Style there, Sakia and Little Big Bear as well. But Chaldean, I just think he's the solid one. I really do. I wouldn't be too fussed about the Newbury debacle. Obviously, Frankie should have stayed on, whatever. But he didn't go silly. He didn't go and do another lap. I think Connections would have been pleased about that. He was caught at the bottom. And if anything, boxing him up and getting him saddled up and all that, that'll do them a world of good mentally as well as physically. I just think he's the most solid option. And I think a bit of value there at 7-1 each way. I've gone a little bit cold on Little Big Bear. I was really strong on him. I mean, that was the 2-year-old performance of the season last year. And he hit the line strong there, and the time before the 6.5. And on breeding, certainly on the dam side, that he'd be of the three sprinters I mentioned there. He'd be the one you think, oh, he's definitely going to stay a mile. For me, it's a little concerning that Ryan Moore did choose Auguste Rodin. Maybe it's just the whole Triple Crown. You can't get off the likely Derby winner or whatever. But for me, I would have liked to have seen Ryan Moore and Little Big Bear. So that's enough to push me over to Chaldean. As I say, I just think he's the most solid option.
And you can't have Royal Scotsman at all. That's what. I
know. Look, he was closing. Chaldean was always holding him. I think. I really do. I think you could have went another half furlong and you would never have gotten past him. Chaldean will be ready for this. I really think that.
Well, he's had a nice racecourse gallop, hasn't he?
Well, that's it.
Yeah. He had a lovely workout, didn't he? Lovely workout. Yeah.
So
how do you view that though? How do you view that, Tom? Proper race without a rider on? Do you see that as something we can learn anything from?
No, absolutely.
Ran well, didn't he?
I think he just, what we learned from that run was that he's just in good heart and he enjoyed himself, and that's about what you can read into it. I mean, you can't read any form lines about it.
The only thing I read it. I mean, did you notice about a furlong out, he did look like he was about to bite the neck out of Isaac Shelby. That's what I noticed. Yeah, he's a terrier.
I mean, that just shows he's got the will to win, doesn't it?
Yeah, like that's the one thing I noticed. I thought, Jesus Christ. I can echo the thoughts in general that it's a fantastic race this year. You've got so many different questions. It is very hard, I think, to have too much of a bullish opinion on this race because there's so many different form lines. I mean, I would be surprised if one of like the top 5 or 6 did, won it. I think the 1,000 Guineas that you really could make a case for a load in there. Whereas this, I do think there's some really high quality horses in here. This is just working out which way three of them are going to go essentially in terms of 3 will go sprinting and 3 will stay. and go up in trip at times throughout the year. So Noble Style is a horse that I adored last year, as you guys know. I mean, I think he's a fabulous racehorse. I think he's got so much talent, so much speed. I just look at him, the way he turns his legs over, his cadence looks all over a sprinter to me, all over. And if you go to the gym crack and look at the sectionals in terms of the sub 11 furlongs he was churning out through that race, if he's going to run like that in the Guineas, he's no way he's getting home. In general, I think, if you're looking at kind of the average staying distance, the combined aggregate of the sire and dam for the Guineas, you're looking for 9 furlongs. Essentially, you want to stay a little bit further than 8, really, if you're going to get home. And he just doesn't do that. Little Big Bear, on the other hand, I mean, his dam size bearing, there's Prix d'Arc de Triomphe form there. I mean, I think if you go back and watch his Phoenix Stakes win, you remember it. You remember the race as him being so impressive and winning by half the track. And then you go back and look at it, and it actually happens really quite late in the race that he really powers clear of those. And I think there is a fair amount of stamina in that horse. He has that wonderful cruising speed. And I think to be a top-class miler, you really do need to have speed, as well as being able to travel in those races and quicken away if the sprinters go just ridiculously too fast. And it's exactly what he did. So I'd be really hopeful that Little Big Bear will stay the trip. And I wouldn't be surprised if August Redan was in the 3, obviously. It's just the way he strides. He looks all over a Derby horse to me, a big, raking, long stride on him. I think he'll be one that just will go and do exceptional things this year. I'm just not sure it'll be today. I wouldn't be as worried as Jack about Ryan Moore not picking August Redan. I just think if I were him and I was hearing and kind of in the yard and they're thinking they've got a proper Triple Crown chance, I wouldn't risk trying to be clever for the Guineas, hopping off and then not being on for each leg of that Triple Crown. I'd probably want to tie my, kind of put my colours on the mast for the whole year. Sorry, Jack, you feel like you want to interject?
Yeah, I just want to raise the question of the Triple Crown. What is the actual point of going for the Triple Crown? For me, it would be such a achievement to go Guineas, Derby, and then go and win the Arc and forget about the Ledger. Does anyone really care?
Oh, Jack, where's your love of history?
No, I mean, look, you look at See the Stars. He goes down as one of the all-time greats. Obviously, in between you've got the Judgment and the Eclipse. No one's bothered that he didn't go and win the Ledger, which he would have done probably, most likely. So, does it really matter? For me, I would give him so much more credit if he went and won the Arc personally.
I think it matters to those connections. That's the thing.
Well, that's true.
It matters to them. They're the only set of connections it matters to. They breed horses. They're the one kind of outfit that breeds horses specifically a lot of the time to do that. To reach that historical feat. So yeah, I think it is more just a bit of fun on their part there. They've got a horse that could do it. As you say, there is no real reason why you would. There's no reason why we would. But
I think from a public point of view as well. I was lucky enough to be at Doncaster for when Camelot went for the Triple Crown, got beaten by Enke. Obviously, he was bound to be on substances afterwards. But
special care.
Yeah.
One of the worst 3-year-old crops in recent times. But go on.
Yeah, no, but nothing to do with that really. No, the point I was going to make was the fact that it was such a buzz. Like the atmosphere was so good because he was going for the Triple Crown. And I think if Auguste Rodin did go for it, I think the public would really get behind it, and it would be really exciting. And I don't think that would change just because maybe the Ledger isn't as prestigious as the other two.
Yeah, I mean, but I think also to some extent they may feel fairly robbed by that, and this is the one horse that they think, they can go and right that kind of historical wrong and go and win that Triple Crown. Yeah, no, I do take that on board, but I think it does matter to them, and that's all that really matters, isn't it? In terms of deciphering from our perspective whether Ryan choosing to ride Auguste Rodin over Little Big Bear is in any way significant. And I get the feeling that they think they've got 2 proper horses here. We don't obviously have decks on Thursday evening for Sunday's racing, but we can talk about the 1,000 Guineas because we kind of have a very good idea of what's going to be running. Tom, you have a reasonable fancy in this race. Would you like to talk us through it?
Yeah, it wouldn't be the strongest fancy in the world, but I really, really like Remarque as a filly, and I've got a love affair with Rafe Beckett with fillies, to be honest. He just has a certain way with them. I don't know what it is about him, but he always seems to get.
What does
He
he
always
do?
seems.
What do
I
you
don't
do
know what he
to him,
does.
Ray?
Yeah. Whispers to them all. I don't know what he does, but he seems to get the best out of them year upon year. And he's had a classic success so many times in the past, of course, with fillies. And yeah, I mean, you can't be. I don't think anyone could be too bullish about this race, really, because there are so many unknowns and question marks, and so many of the horses towards the top of the betting have only run twice. So you can't. I really, honestly, don't think you can be confident, really, in any way. But the way that Remarque won the Fred Darling was, to me, extremely taking, because she just looked like she was still learning on the job, just having a bit of fun, and picked off Stenton Glider and the rest of them in really impressive fashion, hit the line really hard, and I think this extra furlong is going to be absolutely fine for her. And being by Kingman, she's likely to be absolutely excel over a mile. And Champs-Élysées being the damn sire who stayed further, I think the further she goes up in trip, the better she's going to look. And the way she looked at Newbury, that Fred Darling, was serious. So I think Ray Flecker could easily have another Group 1 winner on his hands in Remarque. Whether it's on Sunday, we don't know. But yeah, she really took my eye in that Fred Darling. I mean, you've got to say, so Mama's Girl was so impressive. I mean, Meditate's an absolute tool. We saw that last year. Success from the Breeders' Cup at the end of the season. And then to hear her as well if she does run for Dermot Weld. But yeah, it's a cracking race. But Remarque would be my not strong selection, but hopeful selection, Joey, I think.
It makes perfect sense. I agree. I would worry about Meditate. She had a pretty hard time of it, didn't she, at 2? And she doesn't look the biggest horse. I'd be worried about her really trading on.
She obviously won over a mile at the back end there around the bends, but you would be a little concerned about this mile, going a proper pace in the straight line. I quite liked her through the winter, but I've since gone cold on her. I mean, if Tahira runs, I think she just wins. Be a little concerned about the quick round, but they've had the watering can out. There's a bit of rain forecast. As I say, that performance last year was just remarkable. She kicked Meditate in a touch, and again, that was probably one of the performances of the season. I think it's a weak renewal. Going a bit further down, I couldn't have Mama's Girl. The way the race panned out, I think that flattered her. Morge Lazou wouldn't be for me. And then you've got Remarque, and there's quite a few that tie into that. I wouldn't be surprised if you placed, but a class edge, I'd have to hear. I know, Joey, that you do quite like one that I've not mentioned there.
I do like Dream of Love. I like Dream of Love a lot. I think she's got just a lot of ability. She's beautifully bred, out of Secret Gesture, that wonderful family, the Shasti family at Newstalls Park. I think that the way she went through the race in Dubai again was one of the more stunning sort of performances, in the way that she made up so much ground on Morge. She was it was like about 15, 20 lengths, going around the bend. And she came from the clouds, didn't she, to nearly get up on the line. All of that race to me just looked like an experiment. People were upset with the ride William Buick gave her, but I mean, if you go and watch the way she ran at Newmarket on her last start in England last year, she's so keen, rotten keen, horrible. She didn't drop it. She saw too much daylight, and she really just pulled her head off, and that was over. So what do they do the next time? They try and anchor out the back and see if that worked. To be honest, it didn't. And so they're going into Sunday's race. There are concerns that she will do the same thing. But I'm hopeful that in a sort of, if she gets buried a little bit better in the pack, she might settle a little better. And I think there she's got a real amount of ability. I mean, the way she won on debut as well, the sectional she fired off a fairly slow pace to go and win. She looks like a really above average filly to me. She does have her holes, and we'll see if she sinks on Sunday. But I'm hopeful she'll run a big race. I think she's got a lot of ability. So yeah, she'd be my pick in the race.
Yeah, I can see her running a big race too. I as you say, that performance of Meydan was quite extraordinary, I have to say. You're going to have to see it, believe it, to be perfectly honest. And I think William Buick, unsurprisingly, has chosen Dream of Love over Morge because it's kind of a no-brainer, and Fairy Cross as well. So yeah, I agree with you, Joe. I think she'd have a massive chance. And what I like about this year, as you said a little bit earlier, that you can give so many chances. I'm actually looking forward to seeing Richard Spencer running Naomi LaPaglia as well, because just the one start winning at Kempton. I remember watching her that day, but I was quite impressed. And she beat a very hot, highly regarded prospect in Naive at Jonathan Lee Gosden that day. So I look forward to seeing how she gets on. I don't think she'll be quite good enough, but I love that Richard Spencer's throwing her in.
And that's all we have time for from our first episode of Flat Out. I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, take time to think, gamble responsibly. That is always an important message that we should all bear in mind, especially when we've got such an exciting weekend of racing ahead. Let's not spoil it with silly decisions. But yes, I hope you've enjoyed the show, and we'll see you early next week to review all the action that we've seen over the weekend. I hope you enjoy it. Best.
Subscribe to Racing TV's YouTube channel now to watch more great races like this.